Hello everyone, this is Eddie, and today I'm going to share with you 5 common mistakes that bar candidates do when preparing for the 1 hour essays for the California bar exam. So here we go, but before we start, I want to say this, that it is my hope to someday see a 90% bar passage rate in California. Why is it one of my goals? Because I know that it can be done. And I think that if you're taking the exam, you should see this as a way of developing a certain skill. Because, of course, the bar graders want to see your writing to be done in a lawyerly like manner. So if you can do that, you can pass. And that just takes time, it takes practice to develop that skill. And that's what it is. It is a skill. Now, with that said, let's go on to the first error. Now, a lot of people do not use the elements right in their analysis. What does that even mean? For this kind of writing, there's a certain structure that you can use. In other words, it is a formula that can be applied. Let's show that formula here. Now, assuming that you did find the proper issues, and then you can use this formula. Look at it. It says the element is present because of fact. So apply that element. Let's do an example. Let's look at contracts because everyone knows about offer, right? So is there a valid offer present? And what are the elements to that? So you have communication, you have definite terms, and whether the offerer has an intent to be bound. Let's go with communication. So if the element is communication, you want to use that in your analysis. For example, here, there is communication because, and then you give the reasons based on the facts. Because the buyer sent the seller a letter. Okay, so that was communication. You see that? Very simple. Do not make this more complicated than it is. Now, let's go on to the second common mistake. And that is that the bar candidate will not properly use the facts. Let's go back to offer and communication. So let's say in our example that the bar candidate said, okay, is there an offer? We need communication. Okay, so here there is communication because, and then they go on to write about other things in the fact pattern, but they will not say why there is communication. Now, I've seen papers where you have the element and then you have just the facts are just scattered everywhere. Okay, and also I see papers where you have the elements and you have other elements and they just pile up on each other and they are never discussed. But the reason why I mention this is because your writing has to be clear. It has to be crispy, clear, and that is common amongst the passing answers. And you can do this as well. Again, look at this formula. It is very clear. Now let's go on to the third common mistake, and that is that the bar candidate will not capture all of the major issues. Now, I did develop this technique that it's called the bird's eye view technique. And that's when you're actually able to look at a hypothetical and say, okay, these facts here belong to this element here. Okay, and maybe this issue here, but you can actually see it there. You can see it from a bird's eye view. And you're able to capture the key issues that you have to analyze. Unfortunately, many people do not even get the obvious issues. Think about it, because there's so much going on. And if there's an obvious issue, many people tend to miss it. That does happen. But of course, there are techniques here. More problematic is when there seems to be an obstacle within the fact pattern, because sometimes you get these facts and they sound very confusing. Now, when that happens, I label that as an obstacle because I know right there is going to be where most of my points, many points will come from. How do I know that? For 2 reasons. Why? Because the bar examiners have purposely made it confusing. And I also know that other bar candidates will not get those points. So that's extra points. So when I see that, I label it as an obstacle and I get very excited. Why? Because, of course, there are many major points there, and that's what I call thinking like a bar examiner. You see that it's a different mentality, and of course all this comes with practice. Now let's go on to the other common mistake. The other common mistake is that the writer will not distinguish between a major issue and a non-major issue. There's a world of importance there. Now, I've seen papers where the writer would just use non-major issues. Is there an issue here? Here are the elements, but they will not use a major issue analysis formula. What does that even mean? Let me explain what that means. It is when the writer addresses a counter argument. So you start with an argument, right? For example, you may say there is an offer here. Why? Because you have the elements, you have communication, you have the intent to be bound, you have definite terms. But then for one of those elements, there could be a counter argument. For example, you could say, well, the terms here was not definite. Why? Because the person did not give a deadline in which to respond, for example. And of course, you rebut that and you say the offer stood for a reasonable time. Anyway, the point is that you do mention a counter argument and you also rebut that counter argument. And of course, this is time consuming. So you must be very careful as to where and how you use these major issue analysis formulas. And the fifth common error is that the bar candidate will run out of time. Now, of course, there are advanced timing techniques, and also you must know this, that not every hypothetical is designed to take up 1 hour. Of course, the instructions do say these are meant to take up 1 hour. But if you look carefully, for example, let's look at an evidence question. Many times those take up 65 minutes. And you also might have a civil procedure question. That might take you 55 minutes. So you have to learn how to apply strategies. And these strategies will serve you across the board for every question. And that way you are able to better manage your time regardless of the length of the question. So here at the bottom, I'm going to post a list of references, including my ebook, 1440 Advanced IRAC Techniques. So you definitely want to look at that. And I'm also going to post a PDF with the content of the 5 common errors. So I hope this helped. I wish you all the best. I hope you pass the bar exam. Until soon.